Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Graybar's G2 Talk presentation, How to Cut Your Machine Design Time in Half. This talk is part of a webinar series we offer each month for our industrial customers. We have a great discussion lined up for you today, but before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. First of all, if you are one of the first 50 people to join this presentation, you'll receive a coupon for a free cup of coffee, courtesy of Graybar, as a thank you for your time today. Also, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. Feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we'll address as many questions as we can at the end. Lastly, our G2 talks are all archived on graybar.com. You'll be able to view this presentation again or recommend it to others. We're happy to team up today with Schneider Electric. As an electrical distributor, Graybar works alongside Schneider to provide industrial-grade products for machine builders and panel builders to help you get your products to market faster. You can visit graybar.com/industrial to learn more about our industrial solutions. I'm happy to introduce our speaker, Alec Granger. Alec has been with Schneider Electric since 2010 and currently serves as product marketing specialist for the machine structure, automation solution, and machine control product lines. Thanks for joining us, Alec. If you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thanks, Greg. As Greg mentioned, my name is Alec Granger. I am product marketing specialist for machine structure as a solution, and today I want to talk to you guys about how can you reduce your time to market. So in this webinar, what we're going to be taking a look at are what are the current trends in the industry, how do they affect the machine builders, how do they affect OEMs, and we're talking about how does Schneider Electric, in light of these trends, put out products and solutions that really address them. So what the trends in the machine building industry that we will be looking at, the two ones are simplicity and remote monitoring. Within simplicity, we're going to be talking about how hardware is coming together to actually have a more succinct hardware solution. We're going to talk about how software is coming together to be able to program more devices within one software suite. We'll be talking about how architectures overall are being simplified. And then from the remote monitoring, what we're going to be talking about is this whole idea of Internet of Things, which is /Industry 4.0. How that is affecting machine builders as a whole, how that's affecting the industry, and how Schneider addresses them. So first up is simplicity. You guys all know the old cell phone. It made calls. That was about it. What we started to see about 5, 6, 7 years ago is really we started to see these other convergence of more technology. So you had your internet web browser, your messaging, and your music capabilities. All those used to be separate from a phone. Also, you had your multimedia and your social media, and also your games, and all those things were again separate from the cell phone. Now we're starting to see also the convergence of things like credit cards and in the Apple Pay kind of thing, and also with your mobile banking. All those things are really coming together and have been coming together over the last few years, but the convergence of all those is really what launched the smartphone. So in the same way that the cell phone went through an evolution, machine control also went through evolution. So before you had a box full of relays that were organized in a specific way to accomplish some logic, to be able to control different aspects. It was a great system, it worked, but it wasn't very flexible. So that's what led to the PLC. With the PLC, you can accomplish everything you can with a room full of relays pretty much, and now you have the flexibility to adjust your architecture when it needs to be adjusted. But the question remains, what happens next? Well, in honor of it being 2015, and this is being the year that they went back to in Back to the Future, I want to tell you guys that the future of machine building is now with Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 is really characterized by a few different components. One of them being integrated automation. So we're seeing automation kind of converge. We're seeing remote connectivity aspects and, of course, predictive analytics. Those three components really make up the breadth of Industry 4.0. As an industry with industrial automation, we aren't currently at the vision. The vision has been cast, the vision has been set, where eventually you'll be able to have all of your separate components communicating up to a cloud-based system and then using that information to work together automatically, almost like a little bit of an artificial intelligence kind of thing going on. Not where we are today, but it's where we're moving as an industry, and we're starting to see that. With integrated automation, Aaron Hand of Control Design and Industrial Networking, he really, I think, summed it up pretty well in his article. He said basically the convergence of previously distinct automation functions. What he meant by saying that was the convergence of talking about the software, for instance. You're able to have multiple different devices all programmed within the one software suite. From a hardware standpoint, it's giving greater flexibility and integration. So you're now seeing components that used to be completely separate from another now integrated within one hardware platform. And then finally, simplification of the actual machine or architecture configuration. So what does that actually look like? Before, we had multiple software suites for every different separate component of the machine. You had one for your PLC, one for your drive, one for your motion, one for your HMI. All those things were all, again, programmed with one proprietary cable. So the proprietary cable only worked with the PLC, may not have worked with the HMI, had to get a different cable for that. So what we're starting to see now in today's marketplace is the convergence of and divergence away from the old and its convergence into the new, where we have one single software suite that's able to connect one time to a PLC with one connection, non-proprietary cable, and with that one connection be able to see all the items on a network and be able to communicate with them and download one project file that's able to propagate to the entire machine. So what does integrated automation look like from a hardware standpoint? We're seeing the convergence of separate technologies. We're seeing the convergence of the PLC and the HMI into an HMI PLC combo unit. It's not completely novel in the industry because there are quite a few of manufacturers out there that are making HMI PLC combos. What Schneider Electric has done, though, in this HMI PLC combo unit is they've also released one that has a 22 millimeter push button mount. So you're able to, from that, just punch out what you would for a push button and mount your HMI, which of course makes it a lot easier to get that up and running. We're also seeing the convergence of drives and motors into an integrated drive component, mostly for your motion, with your servo motors, servo drives, but you're seeing that here as well in the industry. We're also seeing convergence of PLCs and drives. So your drives are getting smarter, your PLCs are also pulling in drive capabilities, and now you have, with one unit, being able to control the drives and actually act like a PLC to control your architecture. We're also seeing convergence of separate sections of machine that would kind of be completely separate from the PLC before. So now you have the convergence of safety and I/O together within safety I/O modules, which used to happen before, at least not on a very cost-effective price point. So that is from a hardware standpoint. What does integrated automation look like from a software standpoint? Everybody is moving towards the idea of one software. The separate softwares, the separate programming language, the separate environments is just not efficient. Reducing time to market, part of that is making it simpler to build the architectures to get to market. And that's what one software does for us. Being able to program your HMI, being able to program your PLC, be able to configure your drives, and all of your control and signaling products all within one software suite is where the industry is going as a whole. Okay, so we talked about integrated automation from a software standpoint, integrated automation from a hardware standpoint, and now how does integrated automation affect architecture simplification. So, okay, that's right. It's nice. The hardware is now more flexible than ever. The software more flexible than ever, but it's also it's newer than ever. So we need to figure out how do you actually go about training to know how to put all these components together. Programming. Okay, a PLC is a PLC. It's a nice shiny box. You can have all the nicest functionality in the world on it, but if it's not easy to program, not readily intuitive, then there's a problem. So how do we fix that? How do you fix the wiring of components? Yeah, we simplify with different wiring, so simplifying the connections, but you still are talking over multiple protocols, multiple networks. How do you bring that all together? And then also, nobody's really naive enough to think that every single company is going to standardize on the full range from one supplier. Third-party components being connected into your architecture. It needs to be easy to build. And also, finally, in testing. That's the biggest one right there. If you can build an entire architecture, but you can't actually test it in multiple different languages, there's a problem. So what is the fix? Well, Schneider Electric actually addressed this by putting in training videos and manuals, all that embedded within the software. Also giving sample codes and templates that you can be able to drop it into your configuration and from there be able to build an architecture that is flexible and scalable. Those sample architectures themselves, they actually give you the information on how to wire everything together. So that really helps with simplifying your wiring. And then also putting white papers together to be able to communicate and connect to different third-party components is what is integrated in the software as well. And finally, allowing a simulation mode that is powerful enough to simulate in any of the programming languages with or without the hardware present was something that was desperately needed, and that's what we have achieved. So answering the simplicity aspect, Schneider Electric answered it by something called TVDAs and AFBs. TVDA stands for Tested, Validated, Documented Architectures. And what those are flexible and scalable architectures that are able to drop into the software, and they give you something called a system user guide. The system user guide is 150 to 200 page PDF document that gives you all the technical information on all the separate components that are needed to build an architecture. It gives you the information on all the wiring that is needed, part numbers, how to hook everything up together, step-by-step instructions in that regard. It also gives you the sample code. For instance, if you drop a TVDA into Cell Machine software, what it does is it actually configures the HMI. So you're able to, with that HMI configuration, then start setting up your parameters to be able to connect to and communicate with the different components. There are pre-configured screens that are dropped right in there for you. Of course, you don't have to use them, but those help, of course, in reducing time to market. Ultimately, coding is really where you spend a lot of time on it. So with the automation function blocks, these are pre-configured chunks or pre-programmed, chunks of code that are dropped into your application. And then from there, all you have to do is start setting up your configuration of them. For instance, let's talk about conveying. There's a turntable function block. You're able to drop that in, and from there, instead of having to program everything from scratch, that function block can be set, so you set the parameters of turn to this degree when based on receiving the input from this variable. You know, all those things together with your TVDAs, your automation function blocks, the simplification of your hardware, the one software suite, all those things together are really what save up to 50% in your control system and design and installation time. So all in all, with the machine structure solution and the Cell Machine software, which we'll talk about in a bit, you're reducing your time to market. Anybody can say, I can get you this component faster from my distributor shelf. That's not really what helps you reduce your time to market. It's really the simplifying of the software, simplifying of the programming, simplifying of the hardware, simplifying of the connections, and giving templates and all those things and all those tools together to be able to build the machines you want to build as an OEM, how you want to build them, and to help you to get to market faster. So back to Industry 4.0. Although we're not quite there as an industry, we talked about integrated automation. Next, we're going to talk about remote connectivity. What is remote connectivity? We'll get into that. And before we start, I wanted to bring up the VAS model. I know some of you guys might be, gasping for breath at the sight of that equation. Don't worry, we're not going to go too much into it. Really, I just put the equation up there to allow you to see what it looks like with this equation. It predicts the rate of adoption for a new technology in the marketplace, the VAS model. What it looks like when you graph it is actually an S-curve, right? And that is the adoption rate of technologies. The slope of that S-curve, how steep it is, determines it's really saying that it was adopted at a faster rate than something that is less steep. So let's look at some S-curves for some common technologies in our marketplace over the last 100 or so years. You can see the difference between the adoption rate of the telephone versus the adoption rate of the cell phone. You can see in much shorter amount of time the cell phone was adopted. Also look at the adoption rate of the internet versus the dishwasher. So what does that actually mean? Well, with the adoption of the internet and the development of all these tools, you're starting to see some remote interaction tools from a consumer standpoint, like Skype, being able to communicate with anybody anywhere in the world over the internet with a clean user interface, being able to transfer documents and send things that are much larger than can fit in an email by loading them into the cloud on a Dropbox. All those things together. So what does remote interaction look like from a machine building standpoint? Well, the ability to do remote troubleshooting, remote monitoring of your machines through things like SCADA, web servers, on your PLCs and on your HMIs or WebGate technology. Web visualization, where you can set up pre-configured HTML5 enabled pages that you're able to connect into your PLC and visualize what is going on with your machine. FTP servers, being able to load projects and files onto the FTP servers that are able to be communicated with your PLC. And also getting to market faster with USB keys and SD card technology. So we also had a revolution. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but a revolution for the smart devices. So we had, from a consumer standpoint, we had the convergence of all those technologies. But from a machine building standpoint, what you're seeing is with your smart devices, your phones, your tablets, your iPads, you're able to use apps that are built to be able to build your configuration, put together your configuration of your architectures, machine architectures, all within an app. Being able to control and remotely visualize what's going on with your HMI. In fact, we have a customer named Palladium Technologies, and they use, with their Dreamliner level yachts, they used our apps and our capabilities with our PLCs to be able to remotely visualize, and they have iPads stringed around the actual control stations in the yacht to be able to control various aspects by being able to have that iPad communicate directly to the PLC and affect functionality. Pretty awesome technology. And if you guys go to our website, you can actually see the video testimonial from this company. So you saw that kind of in a box, but really I wanted to extrapolate and talk more about how does Schneider Electric address the trends of simplicity with the hardware integration, the software integration. How does Schneider Electric address the trends of remote connectivity and getting information at your fingertips? So in 2009, Schneider Electric launched with the machine structure solution a software called SoMachine software. SoMachine software was the single software for the entire machine. Of course, it was the initial foray into the marketplace, and being the pioneer, there were some hurdles to overcome. But over the coming 5 or so years, the software evolved, pulling in more and more separate components, and really trying to start to fill the gaps that we had. But one thing that we had to keep in mind is our competition wasn't asleep. They saw the value of one software, and they've all started moving towards that as a whole. So how does Schneider Electric, taking that idea of everybody moving towards one software and trying to fill our gaps, getting more components in on one solution, and also making it easier to use than ever before? Well, that's why last year we launched the beginning of Machine Structure, the Next Generation, complete automation solution. So with the new automation solution, we launched 3 PLCs, the Modicon M221 PLC, the Modicon M241, and the Modicon M251 PLCs, to really capture and bring together separate technologies, convergence of different things, all together within one succinct small platform. What do I mean when I say that? Well, what we did is we brought with the new M221, 41, and M251 PLC offering, we launched new TM3 I/O modules. And the TM3 I/O modules, we have more of them than ever before, but what we also did is we integrated safety into an I/O module. So before, you had to take a safety relay and attach the I/O points from that back to your controller for communication capabilities. Well, now, instead of doing that, you're able to communicate directly over the I/O backplane from the PLC to the safety module and be able to get status and all that information right back on your PLC. The safety module itself, which is great, this is a good piece about it, the I/O, the logic itself is set. You don't have to worry about accidentally messing with the logic. You're still going to be able to, with these solutions, be able to reach your skill ratings and category ratings that you need to be competitive in the marketplace, all within that one small offer. In addition, what we did with one of the I/O modules is we added a TSYS motor starter interface. So with one simple RJ45 connection, you're able to connect to your TSYS motor starters and be able to run, stop, forward, reverse, jog, get the information back with that one connection and translate that back to your PLC. Also, with the M221, what we did is we had a small little HMI pad, keypad interface that's able to be powered over the Modbus port, and from there, you're able to just configure that thing. It's all integrated, again, in one software suite. So also from a flexibility and scalability of performance, communication is key. We embedded more communication protocols on these PLCs than have ever been in our repertoire before. But we also knew the fact that there are multiple different protocols and multiple different avenues out there. So we added TM4 communication modules to be able to have just that much more communication capabilities within these hardware platforms. Also, we added something called TMC cartridges, which directly on the front of both your Modicon M241 and your Modicon M221 PLCs, you're able to add something like a serial line or a couple of analog inputs, 12 and 16-bit resolution. You're able to add temperature inputs, all those things right to the front of the controller for around $100 list price. Very, very cost-effective way of adding some scalability and flexibility to your hardware. So, from an actual remote information at your fingertips, what we also did with the new offer is we added a QR code that is reference-specific to each of these PLCs on the front of them. It's not just family-specific, so you don't just get a general one for the Modicon M221. You get one that's specific to the number of I/O, to the power coming into the PLC. You get one that's specific to whether you have relay outputs or transistor outputs right there for you. So when you actually scan it, the first page that you see is the one to the far left there that builds up, it brings up a little thing that's actually saying technical product data sheet. When you click that, you get a few different options. You get your typical technical documentation, so you can see all the specifications for that unit, but you also get a presentation, so it shows exactly, it points to all the different points and components on the PLC and tells you exactly what they are. It tells you one for diagnostics, so all the LEDs that are on the front for I/O and error code and all those things, when they're flashing versus solid, when they're green versus yellow, what does it mean? So this is great from the standpoint of you OEMs who are building your machines. When you get them out into the marketplace and your end user doesn't really know a whole lot about the Modicon M221 or M241 or M251 PLCs, they can simply walk up to their cabinet, scan the PLC with their smart device, their tablet, their phone, and be able to get all that first-level technical documentation right there at their fingertips. If a battery goes out, in that same scan, you can find out how you replace the battery. What part numbers do you need to look for when replacing the battery? What is the right battery to put in the unit? Those kind of things. When you're mounting it, how do you mount it? When you're trying to connect it to different components, like connecting over your can open terminal or something like that, how do you connect it? All that stuff, again, is available with the simple QR code. So being connected everywhere. That's where the industry is going, and that's what Schneider is also positioning you as an OEM to be right now. So with different apps like Visual Design Air and Air Plus, where you can mirror what is on the HMI screen and sign in remotely over the internet, for instance, and be able to see what's going on in the HMI screen and actually be able to actuate that from your iPad. Web visualizations. These are HTML5 web pages embedded within the controller's web server that are user configurable. So you can pull in a toggle switch, for instance, and all you have to do is change what variable it is actually actuating when you change it on your iPad. All those things. I mentioned HTML5 web pages. The HTML5 encoder is actually embedded within SoMachine software. So you don't actually have to know how to program a web page. I don't know how to do it. Maybe all you guys do, but I'm betting that some of you don't. So you're not going to be held up with that capability. Web servers, being able to remotely monitor your machines there and be able to do things like data logging. All those things, again, embedded right there for you at your fingertips. Being able to, with an app, connect to multiple different devices and be able to set it up on just straight from your iPad or straight from your phone, set up the interaction level that you want with your PLC or with your machine. Of course, this brings up, the issue of security, cybersecurity. Well, cybersecurity is also embedded in here. Of course, you have the ability to set up different levels of passwords. You have the ability to set up different levels of user management. So you're not going to have some guy who just pops in and is able to just, from outside your building or outside your end user's building, control all your machines. You can have password protection, of course, on your network, which everybody should already have if they don't. Password protection on your PLCs, your web server, your web visualization. You have user management capabilities, so you can have different levels of guys sign in with their password and information, and they can maybe only visualize versus somebody who can actually work on the machines. This is great from an OEM standpoint because this is a tool that you guys could use to help you remotely monitor and remotely support your machines in the field. Scalability. Okay, all this functionality and all those things are nice, but architectures grow over time. Everybody understands that. As an OEM, the moment you build a machine today, tomorrow you're going to get an OEM who comes to you who's going to need some extra added functionality or maybe need that machine to be more flexible than it has been in the past. Sometimes you get to the limitations of a controller. Sometimes you get to limitations of a control platform, and you need to be able to quickly, efficiently, and easily scale up your architecture to the next level. Well, within SoMachine software, you can do that today. With the Tweedo PLC, which some of you guys are familiar with, you're able to take your old Tweedo Suite or Tweedo Soft applications. You're able to open them with SoMachine Basic or SoMachine 4.1 software. But if you open it with SoMachine Basic, it'll automatically convert your old project file to a Modicon M221 PLC that most directly fits I/O configurations and stuff like that that were what you had before. Of course, you can then, within that software, change the controller. Even though the Modicon M221 is almost 5 times as fast as the Tweedo, it may not be enough horsepower for your architecture needs. No problem. You can take that same project file, open it in SoMachine version 4.1 software, and you're able to migrate that, and it's able to convert it to something that can be used with the Modicon M241 PLC, which is 10 times faster, 10 times more performance, 10 times the memory, 10 times the RAM of the Modicon M221, which is also 5 times as powerful as the Tweedo. So you get 50 times the performance within one within one hardware platform. And again, you're able to scale all the way through it. So in summation, looking at everything, looking at our trends of simplicity from a software, hardware, architecture standpoint, looking at our trends of remote connectivity, these are the key value propositions that Schneider Electric has put forth with the machine structure next generation solution to help address those trends. So helping you get to market faster is done with the TVDAs, the automation function block, making the software more flexible and scalable than ever before, and making it more user-intuitive, user-friendly, making it sure that it is truly intuitive automation. By embedding all the separate functionality like pulse train outputs with S-curve capability for smooth ramp up and smooth ramp down of your simple hardwired motion, all within the hardware itself, all really help to have the embedded offer. So you're allowing to ultimately have more flexibility and scalability in your performance, to being able to be scaled all the way through our hardware platforms within one software suite. And finally, being able to be connected everywhere to your machine, being able to see it, remotely visualize it, remotely interact with it, and giving you the tools and functionality that in totality help you to build the machines you want to build, how you want to build them, and to help you to get to market faster. Thank you so much for your time. And now, Greg, back over to you.
Thank you, Alec. Great presentation. Enjoyed it. At this time, I'd like to take some questions. If anybody has any questions out there, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A box there at the bottom. I did have one that came in here, Alec. When you were talking about remote monitoring, can you use an iPad to remote into the PLC?
Yes, Greg, that's a great question. You can definitely use your iPad to do that. So with the PLC, we have a couple different ways to remotely monitor or remotely interact with them. You have your web servers, which of course has pre-configured functionality, and then you have your web visualizations, which are your HTML5 web pages that you're able to set up within Film Machine software. Both of those can be set up in a way that you're able to, with an IP address, with the right, of course, level of signing capabilities, with also your password capabilities, you're able to remote in from any smart device, your tablets, your iPods, you could do it with an iPod that has remote connection capabilities, your iPads there as well, and even your Android tablets, for those of you guys who are not on the Apple bandwagon. Shame on you, by the way. No, I'm just playing. But you're able to do that, to be able to just sign into a web page, even from your laptop, and be able to remotely monitor and visualize your machine.
Okay, great. Thanks for that question out there. We're still waiting we'll stick around for a few more questions, see if any other ones roll in. But just as a reminder, this presentation will be archived on graybar.com if you want to refer back to it. And Alec did mention a number of apps that Schneider has, and you can find those by just going to the iTunes Store or the Google Play Store and searching for Schneider US. And we'll send, on our email follow-up, we'll send a few links to those as well. Alec, we had a question about the Show Machine software. Is there a way that our customers can get a trial version of that?
Yes, there is a trial version available for Show Machine version 4.1 SP1, which is the newest version of Show Machine software. We understand that everybody wants to try before you buy kind of thing, so we wanted to enable that to be a possibility. So if you contact your local distributor sales guy, you'll be able to get in touch with them, and they'll be able to get some information to you with an email that gives you a link to the software to be able to download it. It is an image file, an ISO file, so you will need to mount it with a separate software, but that software will be embedded within the email with a link to it as well. And you'll also get complete step-by-step with pictures I like my pictures, instructions on how to actually go about and installing that software so that you can get up and running with it and test it out for yourself. It is a 21-day trial, so after that you will have the ability, of course, to purchase an activation license to be able to activate it for yourself.
Okay, great. And if anyone on the line is interested in that trial version, if you just want to type software into the Q&A box, we'll be happy to get that lined up for you. We'll just hang on for a few more seconds for questions. And I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Alex, thanks again for joining us today with a great presentation. And hope everyone can join us next month for our next G2 talk for the industrial customers. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Greg. Take care, guys.